Britney Spears essentially talks about why she got kind of rationalizes why she posts these pictures. The point of it was that like people are pointing out like, look, you've got kids. Should you be posting nudes? If I were her kids, I would be upset. But as I'm not her kids, I don't really have much of an opinion on it other than it's kind of believable given that she doesn't seem to be in the best place right now. But you went and you're reading her book right now, are you not?
I am. I'm listening to her audiobook.
How's it going?
It's going great. I tried to finish it before we started the show today. I got about halfway through. I used to be a huge Britney fan, and I was like I wasn't part of the free Britney movement, but I believed in it.
Yeah, you were telling me at one point, you're like, look, I actually feel like watching her go through this right now is kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like the way she's acting.
Yeah, it was, and it is to an extent, but with this stuff that she's doing on Instagram, kind of makes it hard to feel bad for her. Not gonna lie.
Okay, so like, what would you rather? I mean, look, it's like her kids, like they're adults now. I think one's 17, one's 18. But like,
yeah.
like I try to put I try to put myself as somebody who's like very much like do whatever you want. Like you're an adult, I don't really care. But I do put myself in her kid's shoes, and I'm like, you know.
Yeah, I have come to the conclusion that she is a bad influence, and she kind of always has been.
Can you explain that?
So thinking back to like Britney in the 90s, she has always been a sex symbol, right? Whether you want to blame her or her parents, that's just kind of what she is. And in the book, it kind of talks about like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it talks about how when she was 15 or 16, she recorded Baby One More Time. And it sounds like she had a lot of creative like power within that. She was the one who suggested for the music video to be in schoolgirl outfits, to have cute boys. And it's wild to think that this 16-year-old girl was making these calls, and
it was such a different time.
All these
culture,
adults
right?
we're just going with it. When she did the Rolling Stone cover, she was underage, and they had her pose in her underwear holding a Teletubby to show how young she was and her childlikeness.
Do you think part of it is also that like Hollywood, like at that time, just got away with stuff because people just weren't as connected and you didn't have this thing that could look up anything you wanted about some celebrity
or voice your opinion on it,
or have your opinion heard on it, right?
Yeah, I don't know what was different, and maybe like people assumed that her parents okayed it or that she was of age. Obviously, her parents had to okay it. So that being said, it's like whether you want to blame her parental negligence or her, as the years went on, she kind of kept with that image of being like this sex symbol, essentially, like the Marilyn Monroe of our time. Yeah. So looking back to me, I was like 5 years old when Britney Spears became famous. So I remember it through the lens of a 5-year-old. And I remember even at that time, my brothers asking me like, are you still a Britney Spears fan? And I was like, no, I'm not anymore. And they were surprised. They're like, well, why not? And I was like, oh, because she flipped off the paparazzi. So
such innocent times.
I know, right? This is even before, like, this is when she shaved her head, she flipped off the paps and all that. So even at that time, I think I was young enough to be like, I wasn't old enough to be influenced by her and be like, oh yeah, she's a feminist and this is like this is her right to be free and show her body and yada yada. I was just so young and innocent to where I was like, I don't like that for whatever reason.
What is that from?
That is, if you're wondering what that sound is, ladies and gentlemen, that is in fact Ian imitating Roberto Jr., rest in peace. And I thought he captured Roberto Jr.'s essence.
When did he do that?
That was on an episode of IRL. And you know, he sounded just like Roberto Jr.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, they brought Roberto Jr. into the sound booth and recorded that and then passed it on to me. So it makes me so happy, and people in the chat they're dying. Well, of course, it was fantastic. Who doesn't want to hear Ian scream? It's not just that; it's him, it's Phil, it's Ian singing basically a barbershop. It's not a quartet, but it's a duet. Yeah. So,
Gabby Hayes said he finally changed it and it's perfect. I agree.
I do my best.
Good job.
I do my best. If you guys want more, we can always get a second Crisis Party. I would love for you guys to hear that again. I would love for you guys to hear that again. Keep going now.
I just wanted to say it sounds like Tarzan learning how to do his Tarzan call.
Chant.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Well, when they make the Tarzan origin story, when Disney does the Tarzan origin story, Tarzan Begins, we'll hear that in there.
It'll be Ian.
So keep going.
So yeah, basically what I'm kind of looking at her through this whole new lens. I will say also like the book touches on her childhood, and it sounds like she has a lot of generational trauma, like not to use that term, but it is blanketed over and over. What I'm trying to say is I don't think there was ever a time when Britney was okay.
That's very interesting because like what are the societal ramifications of such a famous and influential person being not okay for the culture? And there's endless examples.
I don't just mean for the culture.
Say,
I mean,
that's kind of part of it.
Yeah.
It's like that's how you get there. Like Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. She described her performances as her escape. Like ever since she was a little kid, she grew up in a very chaotic environment, out of control. So I think for her, performing was sort of the only place and time where she felt like she was in control of her own life. Not to like completely psychoanalyze Britney Spears, but that's what I got from her
that
memoir.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you're somebody like, okay, so this is a personal story and it's not completely relevant in the same way, but when my parents had split up, right? So I had just started skating like the year before, right? When I was like 12. And I don't know if I would still be doing it to this day if they hadn't split up, because when they did, skating became a refuge of sort for me to work on what I wanted to get better at. It allowed me to kind of get away from everything that was going on at home and escape in a fashion that allowed me to exercise both creativity, athleticism, all of these things. And it became, in a lot of ways, a bit of a refuge. It became an escape from it. And it's not like this was not like a super bad situation. It was like my mom moved out. It wasn't like a situation like where there was bad stuff going on at home. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times after something like that happens, it can be a little bit jarring to be when the home that you grew up in looks different than it did the year before.
Yes.
I wasn't mistreated or anything. It's just that you go through these types of things when your parents split up. If you're like, obviously not everyone understands it, but if you do, right? So for me, that was skating. And for her, a chaotic home life would have had far more implications given that there was money to be made as well.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
Yeah. Her parents were divorced and remarried. Father was an alcoholic and was not really in the picture when her mom was kind of taking her to the Mickey Mouse Club, like auditions and stuff like that. So it sounds like he kind of didn't come into the picture until she lost it, or whatever you want to call it. She had a break, and he had something to gain from it, being the conservatorship.
Yeah, and he's a strong male parental figure would have gone a long way from preventing a lot of this stuff from happening.
Yes. Okay, can I say something? Sometimes I wonder...
Believe it or not, that's literally your job right now.
What, my job?
To say something, yes.
Oh, okay. So what I was going to say... Thank you. I have permission. What I was going to say is, like, is it wrong for me to worry that if I raise my kids in too healthy of an environment, they're just going to be boring and talentless? Is that a thing? Like,
better boring and talentless than chaotic and like, what would you rather
doing
have?
Great things.
Tortured artist addicted to drugs, or boring and talentless working a regular job?
Which one sounds more fun?
The selfish side of you wants them to be boring and talentless because they're going to live to a ripe old age and they're going to be fine. Right?
That is what I want.
Also, being boring and talentless does not mean that you won't marry someone that you love or have kids that you love. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's plenty of boring and talentless parents out there that are fantastic.
You know who this makes me think of also is Aaron Carter. Ooh. He kind of had a similar story of like just this incredibly talented child who's thrust into stardom and maybe even didn't want to throughout certain times of their lives, but was forced to stay in it because their family came to rely on them before they were even like 18 years old.
And then that puts an unbelievable burden on them to have to be the breadwinner for this whole family.
Right.
Was that what happened to Michael Jackson?
Like the essentially, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was like his dad pushed him into the whole...
Yep.
I'm team boring. Like, that's me.
I am too. I was going to say, like, I don't think that's the selfish side. I think the selfish side would be the one that's like, no, screw your life up so you can have talent. You know, like.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like selfishly the parents above all else, they want them to be safe. So
Okay, it's a double-edged sword then.
Yes.
I think either too far in either direction is a bad thing.
yeah,
Like,
Agreed.
And that's one of the things that society's kind of grappling with right now, right? Obviously, for the average person, that's on a much different scale and with much different societal implications than it is for a celebrity who grows up in this vein. But look at what's happening with the celebrities of today. They all seem like, one thing that I laugh at more than anything is this Hollywood obsession that's bled into the culture of therapy. And every celebrity talks about going to therapy, right? And they don't, they kind of can't imagine a world that there are people that just don't go to therapy, either because they don't need to or they can't afford it.
Right.
But they kind of evangelize and brag about it's one thing to be okay with the fact that we are all imperfect. It's another thing to kind of elevate the idea that we're all damaged so much that we need to go seek help. And we kind of talked about this yesterday because we were talking about women who push therapy on men, not realizing that might not be the best solution for men. Right?
Yeah.
But like, it's a little bit different here because like what Britney Spears went through will not be the same thing that your average member of society will have had to deal with. But that doesn't mean that they won't end up identifying with her, or like a lot of people, you'll see comments on these celebrities when they go through something and they're like, oh my gosh, I literally felt this. And I'm like your life experience is very likely very different than what this person went through.
Right. It's
right?
what they're projecting onto her.
It is crazy how different society was back then, though, because we've been talking.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Ashton Kutcher and what's going on with Danny Masterson, because they brought up like how they used to have these things where when female they would like brag about female celebrities turning 18, and just how different the world was.
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
then.
They used to have like countdowns to when this girl would be turning 18.
Yeah. Do you think part of that is just because? Do you think that's because society's actually grown, or do you think it's because of the internet has connected everyone? Like, I imagine that a lot of those people that would say that stuff probably would still say it if the culture wasn't so vastly different.
Oh, absolutely. They're all thinking it still, I'm sure. Like,
It's crazy.
yeah, I mean, and I always like the age of consent is weird because at like the strike of midnight, suddenly someone becomes an adult able to consent to something they couldn't literally yesterday.
Yeah.
So they also talked about in the book, like her relationship with Justin Timberlake, of course, which they've been talking about a lot. And, so it's a very like serious situation, but it kind of made me think of the Barbie movie because she talks about, she had to do an at-home, I don't know if I can say the word, but like she had to terminate her pregnancy.
You can say that word.
With Justin Timberlake. And she remembers being in the bathroom, and to soothe her, he started playing his guitar, which I just thought
What song was he playing? Was it Three Doors Down? Is that what
No, it's
song?
Closing Time.
Closing Time.
Yeah, closing time.
Oh man, I don't know if that's appropriate for the.
He's like, hey, I've been writing this one, and
It's
it was
an
Cry Me a
anti-abortion
River.
song.
Yeah. Oof.
It makes him sound, I don't know if she's trying to subtly make him sound like a jerk without actually doing it, but it kind of makes him sound terrible.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. She says that he was the one who wanted to do it, not her. She wanted to have the kid. She was like 19 years old at the time. I'm sure this did not help her mental health and exacerbated it, along with all the things she dealt with in her childhood and following that and all her public breakups and divorces and what's going on with her Instagram as well. So.
Did who was Jake Gyllenhaal in the Mickey Mouse Club? Was he one of those ones?
It was Justin Timberlake was in it.
Yes.
Justin Timberlake. I don't
Ryan
think Jake
Gosling?
Gyllenhaal-
Ryan Gosling. He turned out fair. Oh, there you go, Barbie movie. Didn't even think about that.
Full circle.
He seemed to he seemed to turn out pretty normal.
Yeah, I would say relatively.
Christina
For
Aguilera
an
did not
actor?
turn out necessarily the most. I would have said she turned out normal, but then she did that. Did you see that thing where last year she performed at like an all ages event wearing like a dildo, wearing like a strap? Yeah. That's the culture now.
Yeah.
That's the culture now.
None of them turned out as badly as Britney, though.
No. Well, I'm guessing that none of them had such evil family members out to get them. Did you? Were you Team Britney or Team Christina? One more than the other?
I was Britney growing up.
You?
Natalie Imbruglia.
Art nerd.
What about you, Brett?
Christina, all the way.
Yeah.
All the way. Yeah.
You asked a question about like, is it selfish to like want your kids to be boring and like talentless or whatever, but happy?
I
think the middle ground is like you could teach them to be talented, but not teach them that is the most important thing in the world. Like, I have so many friends. Like, that's not what I mean. I have known so many people.
I am such a well.
No. I have
I
had
have
so
all the
many
friends.
like acquaintances in my life that seem very like normal, everyday people that are insanely talented, but they don't shove it in your face.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those things where like people like didn't know that Ben Shapiro was like a world-class violinist. But people in your normal life where it's like, I had no idea you did this. I'm like, yeah, my parents made me, or like influenced me to do something with this. But I just wanted a normal life. I don't want the attention for it. And it's not the like skills that make these people marketable. It's that it's being shoved in their head that the most important thing in the world is that people know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the
That's
best
unhealthy.
kids that got into skating quit because it was too easy for them. Or literally, the challenge wasn't there, so they would get really, really good really, really fast, and then they get bored.
That's wild.
And that pisses everyone off when somebody just shows up and they're just really, really good really, really fast. It's very annoying. Do you got any secret talents?
Do I have any secret talents? I don't know.
Nobody. That means
They wouldn't be secret if I told you.
Exactly. That's the point.
Brett's secretly really funny, right? We've talked about that before.
Yeah, that's
his
actually
secret
no. What it
hidden
is, guys,
talent.
is I'm secretly really good at parties. That's what it is.
Oh.
I'm secretly really good at parties.
That's why you don't go, because you'd be so good.
I'd be so
blow
better.
Yeah.
I would be so much better than everyone else at the party at partying that I just figure, why would I want to embarrass them like that? That doesn't.
You'd ruin their night.
That doesn't seem very fair to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know. Like for Britney Spears, it's weird because the culture has changed so much and she hasn't. It feels like I don't feel like she's actually changed that much. She's almost like a time capsule.
Yeah.
That is stuck in the mentally stuck in the early 2000s. And it's just it's scary because
Probably,
it shows you just how destructive that industry can be if you don't have a strong support system around you. And unfortunately, most of the people that get into that industry don't have a strong support system, especially when they're young because the parents are pushing them to do it anyways.
Right.
And it's
Red
not
flag.
like I don't know if I buy anymore that there is such a thing as a parent who doesn't know that it's bad for your kid to be part of that industry. Like, I don't know if I buy that.
Right. She says her mom thought that the Rolling Stones cover was questionable, but as a mother, you're a full-blown adult.
Yeah.
You know that a 16-year-old, especially your daughter, posing half naked is not acceptable or not something you want to encourage, which is actually something, what's Kim Kardashian's mom? Kris Jenner. She gets a lot of flack for encouraging Kim Kardashian to have posed for Playboy and to have like pushed her tape.
Well, she also marketed the tape, yeah.
Yeah, it's gross and it's weird, but at least Kim was over 18. Like, is it sad that that's what we've
high
gotten
bar
to, yes,
here in the
but-
West here. We set very high standards for our celebrity families. We're saying, look, yeah, she sold her daughter off. She sold her daughter's sex tape off, but at least she was an adult. I mean, come on. She's basically Mother Teresa.
Disgusting.
She's like, and she did end up a billionaire, so how bad could it be? Like, that is a scary world we live in now, where like the moral fabric of society has been degraded so far. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.